I think that for it to happen at a moment like this with the presence of Ukrainian troops on Russian soil, it's really a demonstration and it's a warning from Ukraine. We can reach over the border. We can reach as far as Moscow.
Telling, quote, in the Times this morning, a soldier who's moved from fighting in the Donbass meat grinder to the new front inside Russia told the paper, compared to there, this is like a vacation. The quote comes from Serhii, a member of one of the units fighting in Kursk. He was speaking to Catherine Philp, the Times World Affairs editor. Catherine has been talking to troops on both front lines. What she has uncovered is a tale of two very different wars. Catherine, I'm pleased to say, is with us today. Morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Stig.
So tell us how do the two compare? Is it the difference? Is it a psychological difference? Is it a physical difference between being defensive and under constant bombardment to actually taking land, taking the fight to the enemy?
Yeah, it's both. And the fact that the soldiers who are taking part in the Kursk operation have come, at least a number of them, have come from some of the most active fronts in the conflict right now, and the fronts on which Ukraine is doing the most poorly, really shines a light on the contrast between the two fronts. And what taking this area in Kursk has done for the morale of the troops, as well as changing the narrative. Very starkly in their case, having come from those places, very starkly to this place where they haven't met resistance, and they've been able to take a really quite large section of Russian sovereign territory for the very first time.
And do you think that it'll be quite important for them to hold it? We spoke to a former Putin advisor, now an enemy of Putin, saying this is really, really bad for Putin. The elites in Russia, the Russian people are questioning him. The fact that he's not been able to move many people from Donbass to push them back from Kursk has been really eye-opening to many Russians. Do you think it becomes strategically important not just to come in and come out again, but actually to somehow hold on to this for a period?
Well, the Ukrainians have indicated that's what they intend to do. In one of this rare official comments have been made about the actual purpose of this incursion, President Zelensky said that they intend to hold on to it as a buffer zone. Now, I think he's describing a military purpose there to push back the Russian forces who are attacking Ukraine over the border and hitting civilian cities, for example. But then he went on a day later to sort of reveal that the other part of this operation is really to demonstrate to the West that you can attack Russia and not suffer the dire consequences that they've threatened. And we've seen this overnight, we believe. We've only got this so far from the Russian side, but that Ukraine launched one of the largest drone attacks it ever has across the border, including with attempted drone strikes on Moscow itself overnight. And we're waiting for confirmation from the Ukrainian side, but that's what the Russians have said. And although those drones appear to be shot down over Moscow, the fact that they've attempted it in such large numbers is, I think, part of the same strategy.
Because there was that drone in Moscow a while ago, and everyone was a bit skeptical where it came from. But could this become a thing where people in Moscow have to be like people in Kyiv, that you have to have air raid sirens, that you have to be conscious that there could be danger from above? That's been the reality in Kyiv for more than 2 years. Is that a point in this that actually make people in Moscow feel that?
It's unlikely to ever be on that scale. Most of the drones that Ukraine launches are tactical and much shorter range. Most of them, to be honest, are surveillance drones over areas where they're facing ground troops. But it's long range, and it's much further range than most of the drones can go. I think that for it to happen at a moment like this with the presence of Ukrainian troops on Russian soil, it's really a demonstration and it's a warning from Ukraine. We can reach over the border. We can reach as far as Moscow.
There's an interesting question, isn't it? What would happen if there was a big explosion in Moscow caused by Ukrainian drone? What that would mean for Putin, what that would provoke him to do? Because one argument is he's already all in, and therefore there's very little he can do more than he's already doing. But there is this spectre of tactical nuclear weapons that's there, and a lot of people say that it's not real, but it is there. I suppose that's the thing that people are keeping an eye on, Catherine.
Yes, that's right. And think I said this to you guys yesterday that that Putin has dialed down the nuclear rhetoric that that he employed earlier in the conflict, and he has got restraints on him in the shape of indications from the Americans about how they would respond, even to the use of tactical nuclear weapons. Any nuclear threshold breached, they would take very seriously. And the other restraint is China, his ally, whose support depends on him not taking the literal nuclear option.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. It's a fascinating. Just finding out, is it easy to move around? How are you finding talking to people talking to Ukrainian soldiers? Presumably, it's not. You can't get into Russia with them. How easy is it for you to move around as a journalist?
Well, the question of going into Russia, that remains to be seen. That's sort of a matter of debate at the moment. There's lots of reasons why it's tricky. We are able to move around up to about 20 kilometers before the border, and there, is a closed military zone at the moment for obvious reasons. But it is possible to speak to soldiers who are coming back and forward over that border on resupply missions, or indeed who've come out because they've suffered injuries, some of them minor and some of them more serious.
But yeah, you can talk to them, but you can't get quite over the border yet. Really interesting, Catherine. As ever, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you.
That's Catherine Philp there, the Times World Affairs editor.
I found that last year when I was there, that the Ukrainian military are quite tight on where they let journalists go. So I got to, again, within about 15, 20k of the front line. They were dug in just south of Mykolaiv, and I went down there.
What were you doing there?
I went over there to take a look, actually, and I did a special show for Times Radio, but I also wrote for the Times.
Of course, I remember this. Yeah, of course, I remember this when you were still here.
I wasn't there for a very long time. I wasn't like Catherine, but I wanted to go and see it, and I got a charity, because I'm a freelancer. I got a charity to help support me.
That's right. I remember this now. Yeah.
Yeah, the Halo Trust that that are demining some of the militarized zones, but there is an element to which you can't. They're pretty tight. And they're fighting a live hot war. Like, there's a reason they don't want journalists from all over the world sort of cutting about.
I bet the morale that you uncovered when you were there a year ago compared to now is probably changed. Was it already on the way down when you were there?
So the families, I mean, there was exhaustion already. I mean, I don't know what it's like now. It's not a big country in terms of population size. And Russia is huge, and one thing that they've got is a military-industrial complex, and they've got conscription. So they've got bodies and bullets and bombs. They just keep resupplying and resupplying with all of these things in a way that Ukraine can't. And there was already exhaustion. So I think actually the psychological and morale issue of being able to show people at home that they've crossed into Russia is probably massive.
And the fact that Putin hasn't got the bodies or the weapons to move and push them out is a thing in itself, isn't it? That's what we heard early on. Anyway, we'll keep you up to date as ever. It's been 2.5 years, more than that, of this war now. We'll always try and keep you up to date as we go on.